G. Park sat alone in the last row of classroom 7. The metal chair felt cold against her back. Around her, the large room hummed with the voices of 23 alien students. They spoke in different languages, some with clicks and whistles that no human throat could make. She stayed quiet, her eyes on her tablet. The front 3 rows of desks were empty. No one sat there anymore. No one had sat there for 32 days. Professor Tay walked into the room, his forearms carrying different teaching tools. His skin had a blue tint that shimmered under the bright lights. He placed his items on the desk and looked around the room. His eyes moved over every student but stopped before reaching Gia in the back corner. "Good morning, class," he said. His voice translator made his words sound flat. "Today we study the Treaty of Rigel and its impact on small worlds." The students quieted down. A tall insect-like student named Keto raised one of his thin arms. "Professor, will this be on the final exam?" "Yes, Keto. The treaty is very important in galactic politics." Professor Tay turned to write on the large screen behind him. His hand shook slightly, Gia noticed. She noticed everything. She wrote in her notebook with careful letters. "Professor Tay, afraid today. 3rd time this week." Next to her notes, she had drawn a small picture of Earth. It was a blue dot, so far away from this school that light from her home would take 87 years to reach her. She was the only human at the Galactic Academy, the only human most of these aliens had ever seen. The Academy had placed her in the last row on her first day. "Developing species sit in the back," the administrator had said. The alien, a tall being with gray skin, hadn't even looked at her papers. "Humans are new to space travel. You have much to learn before you can sit with advanced species." Gia had nodded and taken her seat without argument. That was 6 months ago, before everything changed. The Treaty of Rigel was signed in the year 4728 by the 5 major powers. Professor Tay continued. It set rules for how larger worlds should treat smaller ones. A student with scales and bright yellow eyes laughed. "Like how we treat the humans?" Several students joined in the laughter. Professor Tay's skin darkened with stress colors. "Mino, that is not appropriate," he said quickly. His eyes darted to Gia for a split second, then away. "Please show respect." The scaled student Mino turned in his seat to look at Gia. "No offense, human. Your kind is just so new. You barely left your solar system 50 years ago." Gia met his yellow eyes. She didn't blink. She didn't speak. She just looked at him. Mino turned back around quickly. The room grew quiet. Professor Tay cleared his throat. "As I was saying, the Treaty of Rigel protects developing worlds from exploitation. This is why we have strict rules about technology sharing and cultural interference." Gia wrote this down, though she already knew it. The protection meant that humans couldn't get the faster engines, the better medicines, or the advanced weapons that other species had. "For their own good," they said. Her tablet beeped softly. A message appeared. From Director Sudo. "Student Gia Park subject. Your special project. The Council requests an update on your observations. Report to my office after your classes today." Gia closed the message. Around her, the class continued. No one knew what she was really doing at the Academy. No one knew why Earth had sent her, a 19-year-old girl who had never left her home planet before, to study among the stars. No one except Director Sue, who wasn't really a director at all. "For homework, read chapters 7 through 9, Professor Tay said as class ended. "Tomorrow we will discuss how smaller worlds can petition for technology sharing." The students gathered their things. As always, they gave Gia's desk a wide space as they left. No one walked too close to her anymore. Not since what happened in Professor Doe's class last month. Gia packed her tablet and notebook slowly. She was in no rush. Her next class wasn't for an hour, and she preferred to walk the halls when they were empty. Student Park. She looked up. Professor Tay stood near her desk, keeping a careful distance. It was the first time he had spoken directly to her in weeks. "Yes, Professor?" she asked. "Your essay on Earth's diplomatic history was interesting." He held out a tablet with her work displayed on it. "You wrote about something called the long memory." Gia took the tablet. It's an old human saying. Nations have long memories. It means we don't forget how we are treated. Professor Tay's skin rippled with nervous colors. "Yes, well, your perspective is unique. I've added some comments for your review." She glanced at the screen. He had given her the highest possible marks. just like all her professors did now. "Thank you," she said. He nodded and moved away quickly, like someone backing away from a dangerous animal. When he was gone, Gia walked to the large window at the side of the classroom. Outside, the rings of the planet Nexus stretched across the sky. The academy was built on the largest moon, a place where many species could breathe without help. Far below, she could see the spaceport where ships from 100 worlds came and went. One of those ships had brought her here. One would eventually take her home. She touched the window. The glass was cool against her fingers. Beyond it, stars filled the black sky even in daytime. One of those stars was Sol, her son, too far to see with her eyes. "They think we're weak," she whispered to herself. "Because we're young. Because we're few." She remembered her first day, when they had placed her in the last row without a thought, when the other students had laughed at her primitive clothes and her simple technology. When Professor Doe had used her as an example of underdeveloped biology in his class. That was before they understood. Before she showed them. Now the front 3 rows stayed empty in every class. Now professors gave her perfect scores without reading her work. Now students moved aside when she walked the halls, not because of what she had done, but because of what she had shown them. Gia turned from the window and picked up her bag. She had a meeting with Director Sue, with Agent Sue as he was really called. Earth's first spy in the Galactic Academy. She would tell him what she had learned about their technology, their politics, their weaknesses, and he would tell her what to do next. As she walked to the door, she passed the empty front rows. 21 seats where no one dared to sit anymore. Not after what happened in Professor Doe's class. Not after they learned what humans could really do. Gia smiled slightly. It would be a long time before anyone underestimated humans again. Director Sue's office was on the top floor of the Academy's main building. Gia took the lift tube alone. Other students had seen her waiting and decided to take the next one. This happened often now. The door to the office slid open as she approached. Inside, Director Sue sat behind a large desk made of dark wood. Unlike most aliens at the Academy, he looked almost human. His skin was pale blue and his eyes were larger, but he had 2 arms, 2 legs, and stood about as tall as an average human man. "Student Park," he said formally. "Please sit." Gia sat in the chair across from him. The room had no windows. The walls were plain white with no pictures. Nothing personal. Nothing that might give away information. "Are we secure?" she asked. Director Sue pressed a button on his desk. A soft hum filled the room. "We are now. The scramblers are active. No one can hear us." His voice changed when he spoke next. The formal tone disappeared. "How are you holding up, Gia?" "I'm fine, Agent Sue," she said. "The other students avoid me. The teachers are afraid of me. It makes my work easier." Agent Sue nodded. He wasn't really an alien. He was human, like her. His skin and eyes were changed by surgery to help him blend in as a near-human species from a distant world. He had been at the Academy for 7 years, working his way up to a position of trust. "Earth Command is very interested in what happened in Professor Doe's class," he said. "The reports from the alien students have their governments worried." "Very worried." Gia looked down at her hands. They were small hands. Human hands. Nothing special about them. "I did what I was trained to do," she said. "I showed them what they needed to see." Agent Sue leaned forward. "Tell me exactly what happened." "The Academy's cameras didn't record it. The security system failed at that exact time." "That was part of the plan," Gia said. "The device worked perfectly." She remembered that day clearly. Every detail was burned into her mind. It had been a normal class until Professor Doe had called on her. The tall, 6-limbed alien had been teaching about evolution and defense mechanisms. He had gone through many species, showing how they had developed ways to survive. "The Vesperians have their stingers," he had said, pointing to Quito. "The Centaurians have their thick skin. The Proximans have their speed." Then he had pointed at Gia. "And what do humans have, Student Park? Please come to the front and explain your species' defensive traits." The class had gone quiet. It was the first time a teacher had asked her to come to the front of the room. She had walked slowly, feeling all eyes on her. "Humans appear to have no special defenses," she had said, standing before the class. "We are not the strongest. We are not the fastest. We have no natural weapons." Professor Doe had made a sound like laughter. "Yet somehow your species survived on a world full of predators. How did you manage that?" Gia had looked at the students watching her. 23 faces, all different, all thinking the same thing. Humans are weak. We have two things, she had said. Persistence and memory. Professor Doe had waved his upper limbs dismissively. Many species have good memories. Many can be persistent. Not like us, Gia had said. Her voice had stayed calm and quiet. Humans never stop. We never forget. The professor's skin had changed color slightly. He was annoyed. These are just words. Can you demonstrate these special traits? That was the moment. The opening she had been waiting for. I can show you, she had said. I need 3 volunteers from the front row. 3 students had raised their hands. Quito the Vesperian, Juan from Proxima, and Yoon the Centaurian. They had come to the front, standing tall next to her small human form. What will you show us, human? Professor Doe had asked. Gia had reached into her pocket and pressed a small button on the device hidden there. The Academy systems had gone dark for exactly 7 minutes and 13 seconds. What happened in those minutes changed everything. I showed them what humans can do, Gia told Agent Sue now. What we will do. The reports say you didn't hurt anyone, Agent Sue said. Yet those 3 students were in the medical center for days. They wouldn't speak. They wouldn't eat, Gia nodded. I didn't hurt their bodies. I showed them the truth. What truth? The truth about humanity. Gia's eyes were steady as she looked at Agent Sue. The truth about what we become when we're pushed too far. Agent Sue was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, the device from Earth Science Division. What exactly did it do? It showed them the future, Gia said simply. Our future. Their future. What happens when a species with persistence and long memory is kept down too long? She remembered the faces of the 3 volunteers as they saw the images, as they felt what she made them feel. The device had connected their minds briefly, showing them what Earth Command wanted the galaxy to see. They're afraid of us now, Agent Sue said. It wasn't a question. Yes, but not because they think we're monsters. Gia leaned forward. They're afraid because they understand us now. They know we won't stay in the back row forever. Agent Sue nodded slowly. Earth Command will be pleased. This is exactly what they hoped for. He pressed another button on his desk. A hidden panel opened in the wall, revealing a small safe. He placed his hand on it and it opened. Your next assignment, he said, handing her a small data chip. There's a meeting of the Galactic Council in 3 weeks. All the major powers will be there. They'll be discussing the human question. Gia took the chip. They want to decide what to do about Earth. Yes, and you'll be there as a student observer. Agent Sue's face was serious. They need to see what you showed those 3 students. The whole council needs to understand. Gia put the chip in her pocket. And after that? After that, things will change. Agent Sue almost smiled. No more back row for humanity. When Gia left Director Sue's office, the hallway was empty. Her next class was xenobiology with Professor Min. She walked slowly, thinking about what would happen at the council meeting. As she turned a corner, she saw someone waiting by the classroom door. It was Yoon, the Centaurian student who had volunteered that day in Professor Doe's class. He was tall and strong with gray skin that looked like stone. His kind were known as warriors throughout the galaxy. He saw her and stood very still. Student Park, he said formally. His voice was deep but quiet. Student Yoon, she replied, stopping a few steps away from him. I wanted to speak with you. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence. About what you showed us, Gia waited. She didn't speak. The others don't understand, Yoon continued. They think you threatened us. They think you showed us some kind of human weapon. And what do you think? Gia asked. Yoon looked down at her. I think you showed us the truth. That humans remember everything. Every insult. Every time you're pushed aside. Every time you're told to stay in the back, Gia nodded once. And you showed us that humans never stop, Yoon said. You keep going. You keep trying. Year after year, century after century, until you get what you want. Yes, Gia said simply. Yoon was quiet for a moment. Then he said, My people have a saying. The patient hunter catches the largest prey. Humans have a similar saying, Gia told him. Yoon moved to the side, clearing the path to the classroom door. As Gia walked past him, he said one more thing. I will be at the council meeting too. My father is the Centaurian ambassador. Gia stopped and looked back at him. Will you tell them what you saw? Yes, Yoon said. They need to know. Before it's too late, Gia entered the classroom. As always, the front 3 rows were empty. She walked to her seat in the back row and sat down. Soon, she thought. Soon we won't sit in the back anymore. The days passed quickly after Gia's meeting with Agent Sue. Classes continued as normal, but there was a new tension in the air. Students whispered when they thought she couldn't hear. Teachers watched her with nervous eyes. Even the cleaning robots seemed to move more quickly when they passed her in the halls. Word had spread about her upcoming attendance at the Galactic Council meeting. No student from a developing world had ever been invited before. 3 days before the meeting, Gia sat in Professor Min's xenobiology class. Today they were studying how different species adapted to stress. The Arcturians released special chemicals in their blood, Professor Min explained. She was a small alien with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around her head. These chemicals helped them stay calm in danger. She pointed to a diagram on the large screen. The Vesperians enter a protective trance. The Proximans can shut down parts of their brain to avoid pain. Gia took notes carefully. This information could be useful for Earth Command. What about humans? Asked a student named Day. He had scales and breathed through gills on his neck. How do they handle stress? Professor Min's eyes all blinked at once. She looked uncomfortable. Human stress responses are complex. But you're the xenobiology expert, Day pressed. Surely you can tell us. The professor looked briefly at Gia, then away. Perhaps Student Park could explain. If she wishes to. All eyes turned to Gia. This was unusual. Since the incident in Professor Doe's class, teachers rarely called on her. Gia closed her notebook and stood. Humans have a basic stress response called fight or flight. Our bodies prepare to either face danger or run from it. Like most primitive species, Day said with a small laugh. Gia continued as if he hadn't spoken. But we have something else. Something that developed as we built our civilization. The room was very quiet now. We call it tend and befriend. When faced with danger, humans often come together. We help each other. We form stronger bonds, Professor Min nodded. Yes, many social species show similar. But there's a third response, Gia interrupted. She never interrupted teachers. The fact that she did now made everyone sit up straighter. One that happens when the danger doesn't go away. When we can't fight it or run from it or solve it together. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each student briefly. We call it remember and wait. No one spoke. Even Professor Min was silent. Humans can endure great stress for long periods, Gia explained. We remember who caused it. And we wait for the right moment to act. The silence stretched for several seconds. Then Professor Min cleared her throat. Thank you, Student Park, that was informative. Gia sat down. She noticed that several students had moved their chairs slightly farther away from her. After class, Gia went to the academy library. It was a huge room with books and data storage from thousands of worlds. She often studied there because it was usually empty. Most students preferred to access information from their rooms. Today, however, someone else was there. Quito, the Vesperian who had been one of the 3 volunteers in Professor Doe's class, sat at a table near the window. His insect-like body was bent over a tablet. He looked up as Gia entered. His compound eyes reflected the light in a pattern of small rainbows. Student Park, he said. His voice came from a small speaker on his chest. Vesperians couldn't make sounds humans could hear. Student Quito, she replied with a small nod. She walked to a shelf and selected a book about galactic law. She needed to understand the rules of the council meeting. May I speak with you? Quito asked as she passed his table. Gia stopped. This was the first time he had spoken to her since the incident. Yes, please sit. He gestured to the chair across from him. Gia sat down, placing her book on the table. Quito's wings fluttered slightly. It was a sign of nervousness in his species. I have been thinking about what you showed us, he said. That day in Professor Doe's class. Gia waited. She had learned that silence often made others speak more. At first I was afraid, Quito continued. What you put in our minds, the images, the feelings. I showed you the truth, Gia said. Quito's wings fluttered again. Yes, the truth about what humans become when they are pushed aside too long. He leaned forward slightly. But I've been studying your species, your history, and I found something interesting. What did you find? Gia asked. Humans don't just remember those who hurt them, Keto said. You also remember those who help you. Gia didn't respond. In your history, when one nation helped another, the helped nation often became a strong ally, Keto continued. You have a saying, a friend in need is a friend indeed. Yes, Gia said. We remember our friends. Keto's wings settled. The council meeting will decide how the galaxy treats Earth going forward. Many will argue for keeping humans contained, keeping you in the back row. And what will you argue for? Gia asked. My father is the Vesperian representative, Keto said. I have been sharing my research with him. About human memory. About how you treat your allies. Gia understood what he was saying. The Vesperians were considering supporting Earth. Why are you telling me this? She asked. Because I want you to know that not everyone fears what you showed us, Keto said. Some of us see opportunity. Gia nodded slowly. This was unexpected. Agent Sue had predicted fear and caution from the alien species, not potential alliance. Thank you for telling me, she said. Keto made a gesture with his upper limbs, a Vesperian sign of respect. We will see each other at the council meeting. The day of the Galactic Council meeting arrived. Gia wore her formal academy uniform, but with one change. She had added a small pin of Earth's flag on her collar. It wasn't against the rules, but students from developing worlds rarely showed their planet symbol so openly. Agent Sue met her outside the Great Hall where the meeting would take place. He was in his Director Sue disguise, blue skin and all. Are you ready? He asked quietly as they walked toward the entrance. Yes, Gia said. I have the device. The small technology from Earth Science Division was hidden in her pocket. It was the same one she had used in Professor Doe's class, but modified for a larger audience. Remember, only use it if I give the signal, Agent Sue said. Earth Command hopes it won't be necessary. The reports from the 3 students may have been enough. Gia nodded. Keto spoke to me yesterday. The Vesperians might support us, Agent Sue looked surprised. That would be unexpected. Their species has always aligned with the Arcturians. Things are changing, Gia said. They reached the entrance to the Great Hall. 2 guards checked their identification and waved them through. Inside, the room was enormous. Hundreds of seats were arranged in a circle around a central platform. Many were already filled with representatives from worlds across the galaxy. Gia and Agent Sue were directed to a small section reserved for Academy staff and observers. From there, they could see everything but wouldn't be part of the official proceedings. As they sat down, Gia noticed Yoon and his father, the Centaurian ambassador, sitting in one of the main sections. Across the room, she saw Keto with an older Vesperian who must be his father. The meeting will start soon, Agent Sue whispered. The main agenda item is listed as Status Review of Developing Worlds, but everyone knows they're really here to discuss Earth. Gia nodded. Her hand touched the device in her pocket. She hoped she wouldn't need to use it. But if she did, the entire Galactic Council would see what she had shown those 3 students. They would understand what happened when you kept humans in the back row too long. The lights dimmed slightly and a tall alien stepped onto the central platform. The council meeting was about to begin. The tall alien on the central platform raised all 4 of his arms. The room grew quiet. I call this meeting of the Galactic Council to order, he said. His voice was deep and carried throughout the large hall without need for amplification. I am High Counselor Wren, and I will lead today's proceedings. Gia watched carefully. High Counselor Wren was from a species called the Meridians. They were known for their fairness, but also for their strict adherence to tradition. This could be good or bad for Earth. Our main topic today is the status review of developing worlds, Wren continued. Specifically, we will discuss the world known as Earth and its species, humans. A murmur went through the crowd. Many representatives turned to look at Gia. She kept her face calm and still. Before we begin formal discussions, I must acknowledge something unusual, Wren said. We have a human observer with us today. Student G. Park from the Galactic Academy. All eyes were now on Gia. She stood up briefly, as was customary when acknowledged by the High Counselor, then sat back down. This is highly irregular, said a representative from the front row. He was an Arcturian like Professor Doe. Developing species do not typically observe council meetings. An exception was made in this case, Wren replied. Director Sue of the Academy requested it, and I approved. Agent Sue nodded slightly beside Gia. This had been part of the plan. Get her into the meeting legally with the High Counselor's approval. Now let us proceed, Wren said. The first speaker will be Ambassador Tool of Arcturus. The Arcturian who had objected to Gia's presence stood and moved to the central platform. His 6 limbs moved with fluid grace. "Esteemed colleagues," he began, "I come before you with grave concerns about the species known as humans." Gia felt Agent Sue tense beside her. This was expected. The Arcturians had always been the most vocal about keeping Earth isolated. "For 50 years we have classified Earth as a developing world," Ambassador Toole continued. "We have limited their access to advanced technology. We have restricted their participation in galactic affairs. This was done for their protection and for the stability of our galactic community." Many representatives nodded in agreement. However, recent events suggest that our approach may need adjustment. The Arcturian's voice changed slightly. "There was an incident at the Galactic Academy 1 month ago. A human student demonstrated abilities that were concerning." Gia's hand moved to her pocket where the device waited. "Would she need to use it today?" 3 students witnessed this demonstration, Toole said. They reported that the human showed them visions of what humans might become if they felt threatened or constrained. The hall was completely silent now. Everyone was listening intently. Based on these reports, some might suggest that humans pose a danger, that they should be further restricted, perhaps even contained to their home system. Toole paused. "But I have studied the reports carefully. I have spoken with the students involved, and I have come to a different conclusion." This was unexpected. Gia glanced at Agent Sue, who looked equally surprised. "Humans are not dangerous because they are aggressive," Toole said. "They are dangerous because they are patient. They remember both kindness and cruelty, and they wait for the right moment to act." The Arcturian looked directly at Gia. "We have kept them in the back row. We have told them to wait their turn, and they have done so, quietly observing, learning our ways, finding our weaknesses." A nervous murmur spread through the hall. "But what if we had welcomed them instead?" Toole asked. "What if we had shared our knowledge freely? What if we had treated them as equals from the beginning?" He turned back to the council. "The visions shown to our students were not just of human vengeance. They were of human potential, what this species might achieve if given the chance, and what they might become if denied it." Gia was stunned. This was not what Earth Command had predicted. The Arcturians were supposed to be their strongest opponents. "I therefore propose a change in Earth status," Ambassador Toole said. "Not because we fear what humans might do if we refuse, but because we see what they might contribute if we accept them." As he stepped back from the platform, another representative moved forward. It was Quito's father, the Vesperian ambassador. "I support Ambassador Toole's proposal," he said through his translator. "The Vesperian hive has studied humans extensively. They are unusual among species we have encountered. They form bonds not just with their own kind, but with others. They remember those who help them, often for generations." The Vesperian's wings fluttered in what Gia recognized as excitement. "My own child was one of the students who witnessed the human demonstration. What he saw was not just power, but possibility. Humans do not seek to dominate. They seek to connect." Agent Sue leaned close to Gia. "This is going better than we expected," he whispered. "Much better." Gia nodded, but she felt uneasy. Something wasn't right. The aliens were being too positive, too accepting. It didn't match what Earth Command had told her to expect. Next, Yoon's father, the Centaurian ambassador, took the platform. His stone-like skin gleamed under the lights. "The Centaurian Empire has long valued strength," he said. "We respected humans for surviving on their harsh world, but we did not consider them equals. The demonstration at the Academy has changed our view." He made a gesture that Gia recognized as the Centaurian salute of respect. "Humans have a strength we did not see before. The strength to endure, to remember, to wait for the right moment. These are qualities the Centaurian Empire admires." One by one, representatives from different worlds spoke. Most supported changing Earth's status. A few expressed caution. None suggested further restrictions. Finally, High Counselor Wren returned to the platform. "We have heard many perspectives today. It seems there is broad support for reclassifying Earth. Before we vote, however, there is one more speaker." He looked directly at Gia. "Student Park, would you address the council?" Gia felt a moment of panic. This wasn't part of the plan. She looked at Agent Sue, who seemed equally surprised. "Go," he whispered. "But be careful. Remember your training." Gia stood and walked to the central platform. The hall seemed enormous now, with hundreds of alien eyes watching her. She took a deep breath and touched the earth pin on her collar. "Thank you, High Counselor," she said. Her voice sounded small in the large space, but the acoustics carried it to every corner. "I am honored to speak before the Galactic Council." She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of as many representatives as she could. "I have heard your words today. Your concerns, your support, your caution. All are valid." She paused. "You are right to wonder about humans. We are young compared to many of your species. We have much to learn." Gia touched the device in her pocket but did not activate it. "What I showed those 3 students was truth. Humans remember. We persist, we wait. These are not threats. They are simply facts about who we are." The hall was completely silent. "But there is something else you should know about humans," Gia continued. "Something I did not show those students." She took the device from her pocket and held it up. Many representatives tensed, expecting her to activate it. Instead, she set it on the floor and stepped on it. The crunch of breaking technology echoed in the quiet hall. "Humans can change our minds," she said. "We can forgive. We can adapt. We can choose a different path even when the old one seems set." Agent Sue was staring at her with wide eyes. "This was definitely not part of the plan." "Earth sent me here with a message," Gia said. "A reminder that we remember how we are treated. But I have a different message now." She stood taller, her voice growing stronger. "If you welcome us as equals, we will remember that too. If you share your knowledge freely, we will share ours. If you offer friendship instead of fear, we will respond in kind." Gia looked at Quito, then at Yoon, and finally at Ambassador Toole. "The choice is yours. But know this. Humans do not have to sit in the back row forever. We can build new seats side by side with yours." As she stepped down from the platform, the hall erupted in sound. Representatives were talking all at once. Some were standing. Others were making gestures Gia didn't understand. She walked back to her seat beside Agent Sue, who was looking at her with a mixture of shock and admiration. "Earth Command won't be happy," he whispered. "You went off script." "I made a choice," Gia replied. "The same choice they'll have to make. Move forward together or stay stuck in the past." High Counselor Wren raised his arms again, calling for order. "We will now vote on the status of Earth." Gia watched as the representatives cast their votes. One by one, lights appeared on the large display above the platform. Green for approval, red for denial. The green lights far outnumbered the red. The vote was clear. Earth would no longer be classified as a developing world. The Council had agreed to grant humans full status in the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that came with it. As the meeting ended, representatives approached Gia. Some wanted to shake her hand in the human way. Others performed their own species greetings. All wanted to speak with the human who had changed everything. "You have made history today," High Counselor Wren told her. "Not many beings can say they changed the course of galactic politics with a single speech." Gia nodded politely, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about what would happen when Earth Command learned what she had done, breaking the device, going off script, making her own decision about humanity's future. Agent Sue stood nearby, talking quietly into his communicator. He was no doubt reporting to Earth. His face gave nothing away, but Gia knew he was in a difficult position. He had been sent to support her, not to watch her destroy their plan. As the crowd around Gia thinned, Quito approached with his father. "The Vesperian Hive welcomes humans as equals," Ambassador Quito said formally. Then in a more personal tone he added, "My son told me what you showed him. It was not what you said today." Gia met his compound eyes. "What I showed him was one possible future. What I said today was about choosing a different one." The Vesperian made a gesture with his upper limbs. "Choice, yes, this is something we understand. The Hive chooses its path together as one mind with many bodies. Humans are different," Gia said. "We have many minds, many opinions. But we can still choose a path together. This makes you unpredictable," the ambassador said, "but also adaptable. We look forward to learning from each other." After the Vesperians left, Yoon and his father came to speak with her. "The Centaurian Empire respects strength," Ambassador Yoon said. His voice was deep and rumbled like stones moving. "Today you showed a different kind of strength than what my son witnessed in your demonstration." "What kind of strength?" Gia asked. "The strength to change course," the ambassador said. "To put aside a plan that would work and choose a better one. Many species can follow a path to its end. Few can see a new path in the middle of their journey. Gia thought about this. It was true. Earth Command had planned for her to show the Council the same vision she had shown the 3 students. A vision of what humans might become if pushed too far. A vision meant to frighten them into giving Earth what it wanted. Instead, she had offered partnership. Not because of fear, but because of possibility. "Thank you, Ambassador," she said. "I hope our species will learn from each other." As the Centaurians moved away, Agent Sue finally approached her. His face was carefully neutral. "Earth Command wants to speak with you," he said quietly. Immediately, Gia had expected this. "I'll talk to them." They walked together to a private communication room near the council hall. Inside, a secure channel was already open. On the screen was General Han, the head of Earth Command. His face was stern. "Student Park," he said formally. "Agent Sue has informed me of your actions at the council meeting." "Yes, General," Gia replied. She stood straight, facing the screen directly. "You destroyed the device. You went against your orders. You made promises to the council that were not yours to make." The general's voice was cold. "Explain yourself." Gia took a deep breath. "The situation changed, sir. The aliens were already moving toward accepting humans as equals. Using the device would have been unnecessary and might have created fear instead of respect. That was not your decision to make," General Han said. "You were sent to deliver a message, a reminder that humans remember how they are treated." "I delivered that message," Gia said, "but I also showed them that what we remember can change, that we can choose to remember kindness as well as cruelty." The general was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "And what made you think this was the right choice?" "Something I learned at the academy," Gia said. "Something about humans that I didn't fully understand until today." "And what is that?" "We're not just persistent. We're not just good at remembering. We're adaptable." Gia's voice grew stronger. "When the facts change, we can change our minds. When a better path appears, we can take it. That's our real strength." General Han's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. The council voted to change Earth's status. They will share technology, open trade routes, allow humans to travel freely through their territories. "Yes, sir. This is what we wanted," the general said, "but not how we planned to get it." "Sometimes the best plan is the one you make in the moment," Gia said. To her surprise, General Han almost smiled. "Perhaps you're right, Student Park, perhaps you're right." The screen went dark. Agent Sue looked at Gia with new respect. "Well," he said, "it seems you've survived your first diplomatic crisis. What happens now?" Gia asked. Now we begin the real work." Agent Sue's blue-tinted face looked tired but satisfied. "Building the partnership you promised. Learning from each other. Finding our place in the galaxy." 1 week later, Gia walked into Professor Tay's classroom. Everything was different now. The news of Earth's new status had spread throughout the academy. The way people looked at her had changed. Not with fear, but with curiosity, interest, sometimes even admiration. As she entered the room, she noticed something strange. The front 3 rows of seats were still empty. But not because students were afraid to sit there, they were waiting for her. Keto stood near the front row. "Student Park," he said formally. "We saved you a seat." Gia stopped, surprised. "The front row?" "Yes," Keto replied. "It seems appropriate now." Gia looked around the room. The other students were watching, waiting to see what she would do. Even Professor Tay seemed curious about her choice. For a moment, Gia thought about what it would mean to take that seat. To move from the back row to the front. It was what Earth had wanted all along. What she had been sent to achieve, but something didn't feel right. "Thank you," she said to Keto. "But I think I'll stay where I was." A murmur of surprise went through the classroom. "But you don't have to sit in the back anymore," Yoon said from nearby. "You've earned your place in the front." Gia smiled. "It's not about earning a place. It's about choosing one." She walked past the empty front rows, past the middle section where most students sat, and took her usual seat in the back row. "I can see everything from here," she explained. "Everyone. The whole room. That's valuable." After a moment of confusion, the other students began to take their seats. Some, to Gia's surprise, moved from their usual places to sit near her in the back row. Keto was one of them. Han was another. "Is this a human custom?" Keto asked as he sat beside her. "To stay in the back even when invited to the front?" "No," Gia said. "It's just my choice. Sometimes the best view isn't from the front. Professor Tay cleared his throat. Well, this is unexpected, but perhaps fitting. Today we'll be discussing how different perspectives shape understanding. As the class began, Gia looked at the empty front 3 rows. They would probably stay empty for a while, not because of fear now, but because of change, because everything was different. She thought about what she would write in her report to Earth Command tonight, about how the front rows weren't important anymore, about how the real victory wasn't in where you sat, but in having the freedom to choose your seat, about how sometimes the back row was the perfect place to see the whole picture, and about how humans, with their persistence and memory and adaptability, would find their place in the galaxy, not by forcing others to make room, but by showing them why they should want to. The front 3 rows would stay vacant, but not forever. One day, when everyone truly understood each other, all the rows would be full again, and it wouldn't matter who sat where. That was the future Gia had chosen, not just for herself, but for all of humanity. And as she looked around at the alien sitting beside her, not out of fear, but out of interest, out of respect, out of a desire to learn, she knew she had made the right choice.